am tearing up.
I just about screamed right now, and I'm not even there.
Now that's inspirational, Natalie. I feel inspired today.
Part two
Are
of
you
this.
kidding? I could be here for another hour.
And I was the top of my class. There were only 2 of us, and the other guy was in the hospital. So here I am.
And I always go, he winds up homeless on the street. It's my fault.
Yeah, now you sound like my wife.
And you can get off.
I don't know. Call the Google. Or call the Google.
Yeah. Border Patrol. Alexa, how does he get across?
Paul, I cut you off earlier. What were you going to say?
What?
Dang it! Don't do that to me, Paul. Don't do that to me, man.
I don't know what got into my head, but I thought this thought, you know, if I'm working year round, I might as well get paid year round.
Sweet Talk is a weekly 20-minute podcast brought to you by the Continuing Education and Workforce Training Division of Idaho State University's College of Technology. Find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SoundCloud, and subscribe today. Now, it's time to get started with Sweet Talk.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sweet Talk, our continuing education workforce training weekly podcast. Today, I have with me as my co-host, my guest co-host this week is Gary Salazar, Director of Sweet. How are you doing today, Gary?
Good morning, Paul. I'm doing great. Thank you for asking.
Great. I'm doing well as also. And today we have a very special guest, don't we, Gary?
We do. We're very fortunate today to have Mayor England, a mayor from Chubbuck, joining us.
Excellent. Gary, let's talk about a couple little things to get out of the way. We have an upcoming construction combine coming at the end of, what's the date on that?
I think it's the 28th or so of March. It's coming up the end of March. What did we put down there? 28. No, that's the EMC conference. Sorry, 31 March.
31 March. So we'll be having some guests related to that coming up on the show shortly. Correct, Gary?
Jason's working on those with Scott. Yes.
Okay. And then we also, again, you just mentioned the emergency medicine conference that we have coming up at the end of April.
And that's coming up 28 and 30 April. That's right.
Excellent. Be tuned to that. We're going to have some guests on the podcast before that event as well. So, Gary, please take over the show and introduce our guest today. I mean, we have like a high tier guest today.
Yeah, we are very lucky to have Mayor Kevin England coming on board. The mayor runs the city of Chubbuck. He's the leader out there. He does a lot of things. We see him at different events around our community as well. And we reached out to his office, talked to Wendy Butler on the scheduling side, and said, yeah, hey, Mayor, be glad to jump on in here. And so we just lucked into this thing. And I'm coming to this because the United Senior Project, which is part of a group of seniors, active seniors in our communities who've come together, different groups, and they're looking for a building somewhere where they can all do some fun activities, some lifelong learning under one roof, and see if that's possible. And they sent me a few questions, and they're interested in hearing what the mayor might want to have to say about those things. So bringing all that together, Mayor England has graciously accepted. We're on for 20 minutes, as I said. And Mayor England, thank you so much for joining us. We do appreciate your time and presence for being here. We heard how you're doing what you're having for breakfast. I have one personal question for you. You know, okay. I've never wanted to be a mayor of a city because it just didn't seem like that exciting, but I'm sure it is. We're into the second month of this year. What has been the most fun thing you've done so far?
You know, Gary, thanks for having me on. And it really is an interesting experience being a mayor. I think many may know, but others don't know that I followed my brother into this position. And it's not something that I planned on throughout my life. It's something that came almost forced on me, but I'm glad it did. I've had 8 years so far, and I've just been elected to another 4 years. And I'll tell you what, probably the most interesting thing about being a mayor is there are no 2 days that are alike. Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, there's about a 2-month period between when you're elected and when you're actually sworn in. And when I was first elected, I spent quite a bit of time with my brother trying to kind of get a feel for what things were. And I remember one day just looking at him and saying, Steve, can you tell me what the typical day of a mayor is? And he just kind of laughed at me. And I totally get it at this point in time. It's there is no such thing as a typical day. And that's what keeps this such a lively position. Each day you get up, you think you have your day pretty much scheduled, and it never goes that way, ever. And it takes some pretty interesting twists sometimes. But I can say without a doubt that I love it. I love this community, and the opportunity to give service to my community just brings great joy to me.
You know, that's wonderful. And I know that a lot of people look forward to the leadership that you bring. I get to see you around the community every now and then, some of our events, and I think you're doing an outstanding job. Thank you for that. Let me ask you a couple of questions. We'll get started with this thing. Like I said, I've gotten some questions from some of our seniors. This one right here, it's based on some recollection of an ARP magazine, 2013 issue that talked about Idaho, the Northwest, the Wonderland. At one point, one of our towns, Pocatello, was like number 2 of the 10 best towns to live in. Then it moved over to Idaho Falls. We have a good reputation for people to come on out here. So the question they want to know is, hey, how do we keep this good effort going to attract retired people out here to our communities? What do we need to be doing?
You know, that is an interesting question, because oftentimes we're asked that question as to how we attract business, how we attract certain amounts of individuals. I think I've probably been asked that about the tech type folks and jobs more than anything else. And when I think about it in an overall position, that's been something I've kind of grown into. At one point, I thought that we really did need to be more actively involved in selling ourselves and maybe having some incentives to folks. But I have come to learn over the years that we really are more well known than we know. I've had the opportunity to have conversations with people outside of our area who are very aware of our area and what's going on. And so my attitude is we need to keep basically doing what we've been doing with the attitude of let's be a positive people. As people look to an area, that certainly is what they want to come and be part of. And I think that every community is going to have their challenges. And when they do, we need to come together, put our game face on and put our best foot forward and make good decisions. But sometimes if we have a tendency to be a little controversial, that can actually do more damage than anything else that happens. And so my attitude is we have got such diversity in this area. We're not always going to agree on exactly the same things. But I have found in my experience that we probably agree about 90% of the time and disagree about 10% of the time. So to me, it seems silly to spend our full time working on and talking about that 10% that we disagree on. We certainly need to address that, but the bulk of our time should be spent with that 90% that we all agree on. And I don't doubt for 1 minute that as people who are looking to retire look at this area, we have a quality of life, a cost of living. We have accessibility to wonderful things for folks in retirement age. And so again, I think we've got several organizations, Vanek Development being one of those, who are doing a good job of getting that word out there, opening advertising type things to make sure people are aware of us. But I think I have the attitude of, hey, we are who we are. People are going to love us when they come here. Let me just share one quick experience. Idaho Central Credit Union is just down the street from us. Great player in our community. And I always like to remind people they really are in Chubbuck. And they're our main people. We love them. But we had somebody who came here, had come here to decide if they were going to take the job at Idaho Central. And it was interesting because he said, this is a quote that he gave to me. He said, as my wife and I came into the community first thing, he said, we didn't know about whether we wanted to make this our home or not. And I asked him why. And he gave me several reasons that they just some experiences that they had as they just were driving around the community. Idaho Central then made him an offer that he couldn't refuse. I mean, they gave him a great job. And so they moved to our community. This was exactly 2 months to the day later. And he said, I want you to know, Mayor, now that we've lived here for 2 months, you couldn't drag us away from here. Right. And that was when I began to realize that maybe we do need to do some things that maybe as people come through that would attract them. But once people come here and see who we are and what we have, they don't want to leave. So I think we're doing a pretty good job, actually.
That's
Excellent.
great. That's good to
Excellent.
hear. I like you leading with the positivity and the attitudes and working with people who are helping make us better. That's a great way to go. And I agree. You can't spend your time on every single thing out there. You got to drive towards what works for the community. You mentioned Bannock County. So I have a question about Bannock County. Well, they refer to the latest estimates from Bannock County population, 24% are over 55 years of age. And that percentage is growing in our communities at large every year. So what's your perception of our facilities that take care of seniors, physical, social, emotional, nutritional, mental health needs, anything that addresses lifelong learning? How do you feel we're doing? Do we have enough facilities? Are we adequate? Are we growing in that direction? What are your thoughts?
Well, a lot of that depends. Again, it comes back to that diversity, but it's interesting. I don't know that I'd ever seen that statistic. 1 in 4 in our county are over 55. That's quite immense, and at that point, I guess what I'd say is that group will have a lot of political say in our community, because my experience is folks who are over 55 are pretty politically active too. They're the folks that get out and vote, and they're the folks that get actively involved. And again, I suppose a lot of it would depend on what some folks' individual needs were. Some would say, hey, this community is serving me fine. We have what we need. There'd be many others who say, you know what, there are things that we can bring on that would allow us to socialize more, to have more of a group experience. Some folks love the church they belong to, and they're so actively involved in that keeps them busy. I think one of the things that I have seen, I actually had the opportunity a number of years ago to work with some widows in the area. And I became very concerned about some of the things that I saw happen with them, but their needs were so diverse. Some wanted us to have all kinds of activities where we would gather. Others were totally content to be in their home and be a little bit of a hermit. And so I think you're going to have that across the board. But as I look, generally speaking, we certainly have some needs in this area that I think if we collectively come together, we can find the answers and provide the things that each one of our senior citizens, mature citizens, however you want to address them, need in their lives.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And I think you're right on with the diversity and the differences out there. Yes, there's a steady population of folks who like to stay at home, and they like, they're retired, they want to do those things and focus on them. There's another group out there that, hey, I want to continue learning. Being right next to Idaho State University is another great attraction for folks. People want to keep learning, and they're looking for those avenues out there. That group is still here. And this United Senior Project group is looking for, with others that are part of it, where can we all come together as different groups? Where can we have some more activities? Where can we do the things we want to do to keep that going? Thank you for talking about that.
You bet.
I believe that, because I also work with that United Senior Project, I believe that's an active group. It's always nice to see people who are looking for a solution. They're not sitting back and grumbling and going, hey, this isn't working for me. What are you doing for me? They're out there trying to see, do we have a building? Can we have a community center? Can we do something with special? Can we attract boys and girls clubs here? In fact, when we talk community center, it doesn't always have to be seniors. It can be intergenerational. I mean, do you have any thoughts on a large place where all generations might come together? Can this region support something like that? We don't know where, but is that something that's feasible?
I believe that it is. And I think if people have been following us as the city of Chubbuck, we've been pretty actively involved in trying to determine what could be done in a community center. And we actually took, I think, most of our council. I don't remember if all 4 went, and we traveled to Provo and a couple other areas. Provo was the one that really hit me because, again, the challenge we have is we don't have the population that Provo has. And so because of that, but they've got a beautiful community center that really does bring together the mature and young audience and has things for each one of them. They even in their facility have a child care facility where people can come, and when they're working out at the facility, they can have their children watch there. It was funny because as I talked to the manager, he said, that's one thing we might rethink. And it was a bit of a challenge, I think, to them. But yet what a blessing it was for people to be able to not have to say, what am I going to do with my children while I go for my hour and a half?
Yeah.
And so again, I believe that it's something that is possible, but it does take all of these different organizations come together to say, how can we work together? As I came to the conclusion of that, because of what it would cost and what it would take, we really would have to draw the entire area. I've really wondered if at the county level, we don't need to find ourselves a recreation district and determine how that's going to come together. And that might be the absolute wonderful way to do this. As I read one of the brochures you gave me, they reached out to Power County and Bingham County and even out into Georgetown. And I thought, wouldn't it be wonderful if we really could get this region to work together for something like this? The challenge you get with that, when we started talking about actually building a community center, even in Bannock County, South Bannock County would have questions. Well, if you're going to build it there in the Pocatello area, that's really not that accessible to us. So why would we put our dollars into that? And so maybe we need to have that. Maybe we need to understand where the major population is of our seniors and try to find a central place where they can come together and do that. But I was excited as I came home from Provo, but I recognized we had two things that just they have, we don't have. And number one was the population. Number two, they really did have an organization to work together. I asked them how BYU affected them, and they said it doesn't at all. It really doesn't. BYU pretty much takes care of their students. We're taking care of our communities. And so I've seen it work. I believe that if we'll come together, I believe we can make it work.
Yeah, great comments on that. I like the fact that you've talked about the larger community. I mean, this valley that we're in, it has so many groups that could benefit from it. Over in Pocatello, they have that senior activity center. One of their central themes is they provide food to seniors who need it. It's very economical. It's very good for them. That's something that we might want to bring in too. Reaching out to larger groups that might be able to provide resources for us is probably a great key. Organizing groups together and providing that united front is another great key. Having that attitude, that positive look for this. I think all those things work together. What do you think would be the first place we should start with that? I mean, do we have to organize first? Do we have to have an idea? Do we look for funding first? Do we need to have a building area? What, in your experience as a mayor setting up a city, what do you look for first if you want to accomplish something like this?
What's obvious to me, the very first thing you need to do is find the interest level. We do a lot of surveys in the city of Chubbuck, and that's the reason we do them, is to find out what our folks are thinking and what they'd like to see happen. So I think that's, and that may have already happened. I'm not aware if it has, but it's a matter of reaching out to the community and saying, what do you want? What would you be willing to support? And support has a lot of different connotations. It's not necessarily money. We're going to need to have time commitments. We're going to need to have money commitments. We're going to need to have your commitment to this if it's going to work. And that, to me, the reason that's the first thing is then you can very scientifically say, okay, this is our need. This is where we'd like to go. Now let's start making a plan how we get there. And that's when you start talking about the concepts of where might we build it? What might it look like? Experience tells me when people who have the interest in it have they're involved in those decision processes of the wheres and hows and whats, they become much more excited about it and much more committed to it. So I think there are definite steps that need to be taken. I know that these folks have been working on this for well over 5 years. They were in my office a number of years ago talking to me about this, and I recognized the challenges that they were up against. I'm excited that 5 years later, they're still working on it and not discouraged and saying, well, I guess we can't make it happen. That's a good thing to recognize. It might take some time to get this together, but it's well worth it. And we're at a point where I believe we can do it. I do. I think there are some funding opportunities out there that we have never had before. COVID has brought plenty of challenge, but it's also opening great opportunities. And this is a place that we ought to be looking. Are there things that we can do with the CARES Act that, believe me, our seniors have been affected by this COVID thing. What can we do to better serve them? How can maybe some of these projects will fit into the criteria for spending some of those dollars? So I think this is a great time to be talking about some opportunities for funding.
Yes, and you mentioned that this group came and talked with you a few years ago. They're still into it. I'll tell you, they are still passionate about it. The folks that I get to rub shoulders with, they want something to happen. They're very interested in doing whatever it takes to achieve that goal. So that fits in with your earlier statement about a commitment and positive attitude. They're not giving up, and they want to find more people who have that same interest, and they want to continue to grow all those senior groups. And maybe somewhere down the road, we'll find a place where all the money comes together, all the interest comes in together, and here's a great location. And all that confluence of themes coming in can help produce a start, and we can grow something that benefits all of us.
Absolutely.
I totally support that. I think everybody I talk to, they want to do something with that. it's very nice to hear you say a lot of those same words. I think that shows commitment from the leadership of the city of Chubbuck. I know they have that in other places, and I appreciate your being able to come on and do that. If somebody had a question for you, Mayor, if somebody wanted to get in touch with you and say, hey, I want to know more about this, or what can we do with that, how would they get a hold of you, or where should they go? Yeah.
Well, I'm grateful. My door's always open, and I have the opportunity to talk to a lot of citizens, and we want to make it just as easy as possible. My assistant, Wendy, her direct number is 208-239-3206. She schedules my appointments, and I made the mistake my first year as mayor of trying to schedule some of my own appointments and messed up our whole lives. So I tell people that I have a block of time that I hand to Wendy, and she owns it, and I do what she says, basically. But if you have a desire to come and talk to Mayor England, you get a hold of Wendy, and she'll get you in, and you'll be surprised how quickly she can get that arranged too. And particularly if you have a concern that rises to the level of needing to see the mayor, you'll be really tickled how quickly you can get in. But we certainly make time for citizens, and I love having communication with our citizens, finding out what their concerns are. And it's amazing to me how many of them nowadays don't just come in with their concerns, but we receive great compliments from them, and they're grateful for what's happening. And then they have, how about if we, and I just love that. So very open to the opportunity of talking to anybody who would like to come in.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And Wendy, by the way, you are right on. I got in touch with her, and like next thing you know, she says, hey, well, how about this time? I go, wow, that was quick. It was easy. Love you. I love Wendy. I love you being able to put that out. What a great way to be so receiving, and people have access to the office. That is terrific. I can see our time's almost up here. So what I'd like to do is give you an opportunity to finish this out. There you go. And if there's anything you want to say before we close this, this would be a chance for you, Mayor, to talk to all the seniors out there. As you know, we'll post this later on, and everybody get a chance to see it.
Great, Gary. Thank you so much. I just might say that I got to be careful not to be too self-serving, because I'm one of you folks. I turned 65 this year, so I'm a senior, and I'm grateful for the things that I see that are available to us. But you know, I think again, as I think of the diversity of the seniors that I've worked with, there's two things I know. The seniors make our community work. I am amazed when I go in and see different things that are going on in our community, and see the people who are the movers and the shakers behind it. And most of them are our senior citizens. And by the way, they don't ever want me to bring their name up. They don't want any recognition. But I got news for you. Many people think a lot of these wonderful projects that happen in our community just happen. They don't. They take great time and effort. So I know this community. I know their heart. They want to serve this community. Too often when we get a special interest group, they really are in it just for them. The seniors are just the opposite. We have an obligation to take care of their needs, but I got news for you. If we'll get behind this and support them in getting this put together, we'll find out that they'll find great ways to serve our community. So as the mayor of Chubbuck, as a leader in this community, I would encourage all of us to be as actively involved in this process as we can, to recognize that, again, we're talking about serving a quarter of our population. Let's get behind it and give it our very best positive efforts.
Great. Thank you very much, Gary. Thanks for joining us on Sweet Talk. Paul, you want to close us out?
Yes. I thank you so much for being on the show today, Mayor England. Appreciate it so much. But if you want to get a hold of us here at Continuing Education Workforce Training, you can reach us by either emailing us at cetrain@isu.edu. You can visit our website at cetrain.isu.edu, or you can call us, the old-fashioned way, 208-282-3372.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks again, Mayor. We're done.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.